All right, tonight we're going to finish up modeling our lidded container. So I want to show you a few things, mainly like using like the split body tool for shrinking that threaded rod we brought in, as well as doing some other modeling features that are for the assignment, as just giving you some different options. And then I also want to show you a couple of different example options of uh, different ways to make this printable, make this more accessible. Like I said, I don't expect you to actually order hardware for this stuff, but it's an option should you want to do that. So I wanted to just show you some different modeling options to where you could like print a rod or post or something to use as your hinge, or even different ways of like shrinking the aperture of that pin and making it actually using like just the filament itself as your pin. So let me swap over to Fusion and I'll show you what we're talking about. All right, back to our little blueberry friend. Um, so where we left off was we had the basic stuff down. We had some modeling done. We have got the hinge working and all that such. Again, remember, if you make movements and such, the icon up at the upper right-hand screen will come in of if you want to capture position, meaning like if you wanted to model this closed and then leave the example model open or in its current position, you would use the capture position icon here. And again, you mouse over it, it tells you what it is, or revert means puts it back to where it originally was. Not even to where you just left it. It will put it back to its original location orientation. So cool. One thing I did want to note, I did import a new mesh of my model. As last class, when we converted the model or the mesh to a solid, it was really bogging down the program. So it's still there. It's hidden though. So if you go to this model and want to use it, just thumb through it, just know that that is still there. But I just imported a fresh copy of the mesh, and it is processing a little bit faster. So there we go. All right. So first thing I want to do is I want to show you how to shrink the threaded rod. Now, when we imported this from McMaster-Carr, we found we only had a couple of options, like one at like 50 millimeters long and one at like 80 or 100 or something like that. I think it was 80. But our measurement here is only like 60 or so. First, let's go ahead and check. Use the measure tool. Select somewhere on this plane. And then I could pan down right there. All right, 50 millimeters. Now, remember, you do want to leave something sticking out for what that threaded rod would snap onto. And just to check, let's clear the selection. And I don't know, how far should we leave for that? Select somewhere there, and I don't know, like the top of the cap. 6. All right, so if we do like 65 millimeters, that ought to be just fine. Cool, okay. Now, the easiest way to do this is using the split body tool. And essentially what this does is just like it sounds. You have an object, a body, not a component, but a solid body within Fusion, and you're using something as a delineation line to chop that body into two separate parts. Now, you can use an existing plane, one of your origin axes, or one of your origin planes, even one of the axes, something like that. Obviously, you can't see it because it's smack in the middle there, but you could use one of the floating planes. If you can't get to it, you hide one of the objects and it should let you get in there, or hide several. Or you can use a sketch and a line somewhere, or you can even use a construction plane. We talked about that a little bit last project, but construction plane merely means it's a floating virtual plane away from your original axes. Now, for the moment, we're just going to build ones directly off of our standard 3 different axes, the XY, XZ, and YZ axes. We'll be discussing that in a future project on different types of construction planes. If you use the drop down, you can see there's a whole lot of them. We're not going to get into all of those, just a couple of them, but they're all variations on a theme there. So I want to show you how to make use of this stuff. So obviously an easier thing here will be I could just, for the sake of this project and for a modeling example, I'm going to leave these objects as they are, but I'm just going to make copies so I have some duplicates so you can revert back to them one or the other. Also, I'm going to hide everything else we don't need. little ghost friend, all of that. So just the threaded rod and the end caps. So in this case, yeah, again, I can just go ahead and, let's see here. Let's label these as numbers. So at least I can refer back to these. They're both copies, so that's going to be, if I change one, it's going to change the label of the other one. Nice, because they're already copies to begin with. This one, I'm going to just say as original. If I can remember how to spell original. Okay, cool. So I'm just going to copy and paste a couple. There we go. Now to keep them separate, again, I'm just going to move this out of the way. It's fine. Like where it is. Good. That did make a new version. So see down here at the bottom, that is a copy. So change original to, we'll say sized. Make sure that didn't. Crud. All right. So let's make it a copy of the same. So it's not, so they are in fact linked. Whatever. Main thing I wanted to show you is how to chop this down. So yeah, you can measure this, you can use math, but blah 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 blah. Why bother? We're gonna make a first a measurement. Just double check. All right. So measuring using the inspect tool, select the top plane there, orbit down, bottom plane there. All right. Now tell me 80 millimeters. Great. Now, technically, yes, I could try to, measure from the. Oh, that's going to get confusing. Let me go to the left side. I could try to measure down and, all right, so much from the one side, yada, yada, or from the center and make sure they're even parts. Don't bother. What I'm going to do is, remember, a construction plane a construction plane is generated relative to something. So just an offset face even. So it doesn't have to be a plane based off of one of the origin points or origin planes here. We can select a face here and move it down from there. That's exactly what I'm going to do. So the whole thing is 80 millimeters. I need it like 65. So construction plane, select the top, and let's just go negative 15. So that'll be, 65 left. Great. Now I can go to split body. That's the body I want to split. My splitting tool is that plane. And you can see how it just highlights just a little ring around that. It just shows you how little it could be. If you're using like a line, a sketch line or something, it can extend well beyond that, and you'll have an option box. But right now, it's not showing it, so we're not going to bother with it. Say okay. I'm going to process a little bit because other stuff. I might just end up deleting that object in there. But all right, great. All right, now split it into two bodies. Hide the top one. I can hide that construction plane, but now that thing significantly shorter. So that's all. It just makes it easier to deal with. So on that, let me just hide that construction plane as well. Now, of course, fun thing is all right, I guess since they're copies, it's linking together. Usually when you make a copy of an object, it does not stay linked, but these are staying linked. So whatever I do to one, aside from physically moving it, it's doing the same. So that's going to cause issues as far as now I have to resize this. I was hoping it was going to stay in place. If I had imported a fresh version, it would have. So in this case, let it be what it is. All right, so let's unhide the parts, and we'll just move that back into place. All right. So because it shrank that, or both of them, rather than just the one, because again, they were linked objects, I'm rather than creating new joints, because that's going to create a conflict, I'm going to go in and edit this joint. Let me, where is you? What, that one? And unfortunately, it's not letting me select it from there, so I can use a drop down. It's the rigid joint there. So let's go in, pardon me, edit joint. So what I'm editing about this is just its original selection point. And unfortunately, that exists before the that exists before we made the split. So this is one of those times where when you make adjustments on this whole timeline thing, because it's a linear time aspect, it can get confusing. So if you run into something like this, it's going to be easier to just delete your original joint and do that over. So because of that, that's exactly what I'm going to do. That was this one. So I can right click either up here, or since it's highlighted on my timeline, right click down there and just delete that. Now it's going to drop that out into space. That's fine. Before I make a move, why not go ahead and snap this acorn nut onto here just to get it done right now? Might as well. All right. That's the first one. That's the one that's still in play. Great. Let's edit that one instead. Edit that joint. See, now it's doing the exact same thing. Because that occurred before that split body, it's just causing all kinds of trouble.
Can you delete the split body?
I can, but I want the split body to exist.
Like, you want the top part to exist on the split body?
No. I need the question being that can I just delete the split body action and do something else? Yes, but I'm trying to use the split body to shrink that threaded rod to the correct size. Mm-hmm. So really the more effective option would have been go back and pull my history slider back, do it then. So because of that, that's your options. You can either delete these, repeat all this, or exactly that. Let's cancel it. And where was that split body? All of this back there. Problem is the issue is with these imports and such like that. It realistically works better to have these joints after the fact. But sometimes you can move the joint into place. In this case, it's going to let me without any errors. So I'm literally just dragging and dropping those joints after the split body. Now, I'll still have to edit this one because it's where it was, doesn't matter. Yeah.
I mean, like, can't you, like, you know how you just turn, like, the eye off, the eye body too? If you just select that whole body too and then just delete that part, will it get rid of just, like...
Oh, will it just snap down into the next? No. Yeah. Because the question being that if I were to just delete that little chunk of body that I was removing to make the threaded rod shrink to size, would the joint cap just snap down to the next? In this case, no, because that acorn nut, its joint that located it was connected to the end of the threaded rod, of which we would have just deleted. So either way, I'm still going to have to just reselect where that one goes. But I was able to just drag and drop the two joints until in time after I made that split body. So sometimes you could do that. I didn't do it before, so I wanted to just show you what would happen, things like that. Sometimes you can do it, or really the other times you can do it and you just get a whole bunch of errors. So all I have to do with this one, go in, right click, edit that joint, and remember the selection is what will move, and the second is to where it will move to. So still the same thing. Great, that's selected. Let's just select a new point, and that will instead be floating on the top of here. Now, as I zoom in, you see how I'm having trouble selecting right in the center? What I want is that square. There we go. And it flew into place. And it's all good. Actually, I may have misspoke. Actually, no, it was not the square. I wanted the point. I forget. Ugh. The square is the center of this circle. The X is the center of essentially the cylinder. And what I mean by that is, and this is why threaded rods get confusing. You can see a little bit more clearly here. When I mouse over, the square is centered on the top of that threaded rod circle, which is kind of offset because of how threads cut. The plus sign is the one that I actually want. In reality, it doesn't really matter what we're doing right here, but for the sake of accuracy, yeah, it very much do. So now in an orbit under, see how it's all connected. Okay, there we go. Zoom back out, super duper. Now, because I deleted that first joint, we'll just go ahead and snap this in place. Joint selection mode. Now remember, I do need to use the between two faces to select the center of this threaded rod because it's just a pain otherwise. And I can't see that with those two end caps visible. So we'll select this top face again, orbit under that face. Good. The snap is going to be, if I zoom out, went right in the middle. And it's hard to see. Ugh. Come on, buddy. Let's see if they'll let me from here. There we go. So again, select that plus there. If you can't get to it because these threaded rods just throw your selection all over the place, can't quite get there. Again, the program knows that you're selecting something right between the middle of those faces, so you don't really have to select actually in the center of the spot. You just have to select now in the center of the cylinder. And you can see as I zoom in, you can vaguely see that little dotted construction line running right down the center of the threaded rod. It's hard to see. There we go. You can see a little more clearly. Select the cross again, or the plus sign, and there we go. We're all set. Okay. And at this point, I can just, since that hinge joint already exists, I kind of have a snap point. Just use that and fly into place. And again, it's a rigid joint, so all good. Okay. So that was an extremely roundabout way of showing you how to just chop that. Realistically, we should have chopped that when we first initially got it brought in, but we're going to show you the process. Okay, super duper. There's those parts. We'll save. Threaded rod. Lots of stuff going on there. Okay, great. Very small change was made, but just meaning that know that you can still alter objects that you bring in or you import from like McMaster Car, stuff like that. They're still modifiable objects. They're still changeable bodies. All right. So next I want to show you, let's model some features. Like I said, for the assignment, you do actually have to have a couple of objects. So just snapping over here, again, refreshing. The assignment requires you to, oops, that's a writing thing. That's why it's not, that's why I'm not showing the screen at the moment. I've clicked it twice. Awesome. There we go. So we need some sort of a latch or a thumb catch feature. So I'm going to show you both. Also, you need to have some sort of example of like an emboss, cut relief, something to that effect, whatever. It can be on the surface of the lid. It can be inside the lid or inside the container. It can be a label, whatever. And again, we're using the appearance tool. So just for the sake of speed, why don't we go ahead and flip those around? I'll show you how to add some features. We played with the emboss tool, stuff like that. You can sketch directly on one of these surfaces. So like right here, just on. Hey, your features could be holes. You could be text, both, whatever. So let's just say, sure, whatever. Actually, tell you what, since we're on a sketch, let's go ahead and I haven't shown you how to use sketch on a path yet. So I just drew a fit point spline, little curve there. Great. Now I can go to select text, and the other one that we haven't gotten to play with yet, select or sketch on a path. You need a path. A path in this case is that line. Select that line. There we go. And why not boo? Boo box. Yeah. Deselected. And I guess I could delete a couple boos, and then we have some spacing. Standard thing, you still have your other options here. You can align it to center. There you go. You can't select it to just fill the space unless, check the box. And it just spaces everything evenly. So your kerning gets kind of weird on that. So sometimes fit to path works well, but at the same time, I kind of don't like using it. I kind of prefer to just use fit align, but that's just personal. Again, whoops, what did I just do? What did I just do? I accidentally hit paste instead of select. I think I just very much confused everything. Okay, I don't know what's happening here. Hold on a second. I'm going to pause the recording. Okay, there we go. I'm not sure what happened, aside from meaning I accidentally hit Control V instead. So I'm not sure what it started doing. So I'm just going to repeat that. We'll make it a blue box. Great. And we'll add a couple other. Oops. Sure. Whatever. What I was trying to do was hit bold. Center aligned. Great. Okay. Finish sketch. There we are. Now, real quick, total aside, I'm going to delete the object out of here, the mesh that we converted to a solid. I think it's just really bogging down the program because it's just a hidden thing that's got a lot of information on it. So I'm going to save real quick. Edit, and then I'm going to delete that. So after it finishes saving, which may or may not take a while. There we go. Okay. So I'm just going to go in and delete this. Might take a moment. Recording. Okay, so I deleted the body of the mesh that I brought in that had converted to solid. When I hit delete, it changed instead of deleting it, it changed the mesh or the solid back to a mesh. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. So we're just going to move ahead. That was weird. So yeah, got there. Because this is a straight feature, I don't really have to use the emboss tool, but sketch tool on a face, that works fine. There we go. And where'd my oops. There we go. Yeah, oh my god. Onto that. There we are. Yes, yes, yes. So the problem is using emboss directly on a face, it won't let you. The emboss has to be floating above or behind, realistically, and above. So in order to use the emboss tool for this, I would want to create a construction plane, an offset plane. But since it's directly on a face, I can just directly use extrude. So select the text and just bring it out. Doesn't matter, like 3 millimeters. That's pretty severe, but there you go. So play around with that sort of thing. In this case, not sure why I'd want to do that. Now, one quick thing is it's saying new body. Why is that? Because I currently do not have the lid component active. Remember how we did the lobes here, and it looks like something else happened here. I'm not sure why the lobes disappeared from that. Okay, that's interesting. So all that means is for that, make sure that you have activated the lid component. Now you can go and use the extrude of that sketch and like 3. No. There we go. So that's all. And the reason it's not automatically bumping over is because that sketch exists currently outside. So this is the importance of making sure to remember where you are working and activate the components appropriately. I can still join this. It's not a problem. I'm still going to join. Just know that it would be more effective. Let me collapse some things here. If the sketch for that had been moved onto the lid component. So there we go. All right. And you can play around with that and we'll do some other stuff to it too. But basically, that's the kind of thing we're looking for. Let me go ahead and activate the whole component, the whole project. I don't know why that's very strange. The lobes went away. Let's activate that and see what's going on. What happened to okay. Very weird. It's one of the things that you got to watch for. What? Looks like somehow this sketch got altered. This must be whatever happened when what's going on here? That got moved. All right. Something must have happened when I did that control V and paste something. I don't know what happened, but it looks like something changed here. So, hey, something to be aware of. If suddenly things shift around because it hit a keystroke that you didn't mean to and stuff went kind of wonky, all right, I guess you have to go back and fix some stuff. So, all right, at the moment, I'm going to ignore that. We're going to move ahead, and I want to work on some other stuff. All right. So I don't know what's going on there. That's very strange. I'm going to have to repair that, which just means I'm going to have to move these sketches back over. I don't understand why that changed, but it is what it is at the moment. All right. So the next thing I want to do is I want to do some very basic manipulations here, like meaning like add some features. So let me hop over to the other example. And one of the things is just a really simple tab. So ultimately, as is, this is like just a clamshell box. I have to grab both sides real tight and actually hold on to, well, don't have to like manhandle it, but it'll open easily enough. But I like to add some features, something like simple thing like this little thumb hole, easy peasy. Now, I have made some adjustments and all that such, but because I originally made this with the shell tool, this actually makes this whole process a lot easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the time slider back before I made that. And before I did that, that ought to work. For this part, I'm just going to add like a little thumb tab. So what this would be, I could even go back to the original sketch. Wouldn't be a bad idea, but just to keep things a little separate, I'm going to add a sketch here. So I'm just adding this. Let's hide the little ghost. Back to the original plane, or wait, you're in my way. Hide the other component. I just want it on that same sketch plane. All right. Now the problem is of course, now I've lost all my orientation of what's going on. And if I bring it up, okay, good. We're there. But I was just trying to remember, like, what side am I working on? Okay, it's going to be on my screen to the right. If I keep it looking front, great. So now when I go back, edit that sketch, cool. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some really basic stuff, like a little circle. So I want to add this right to the center. And the good thing, as you get to the center, the little box and cross changes to a little floating triangle. That means it's the center of that current line. Great. And I don't know, a little 10 millimeter circle. Cool. There we go. All right. Finish sketch. That's it. That's literally it. Because what I'm going to do first, and again, when I have my slider back in history, first I'm just going to extrude that a little bit. Okay. I don't know. Up 5. Now it's going the wrong way, so negative. Just something like that. So I'm just making this little catch here. Okay. Join. Great. There's a little bit. Of course, it hides the sketch, but let's unhide that because I don't want that to happen. But like on the example here, I made like this little recess. Now this is tapered because the original extrude was tapered, extruding this box upwards. And this one, we did not do that. But I do still want to kind of add just a little feature just because I can. All right. So I'm going to extrude again. I'm going to use this sketch. And I'm just going to use that side. Or I can select all of it. It doesn't really matter. But I want to go extent, object to the top. So it's going to slice that out. But that just chopped out my whole chunk there. So start plane, instead of start at the profile, add object. Now see, it deleted my thing there. So let's go ahead and now it won't let me do any of that. So let's cancel that real quick just so you can see what I'm doing. Extrude. I'm just going to use both those sides, doesn't matter. My start, though, is going to be at object, and I want to select the top of that. Now, the extent, also object, top here. Now it's just chopping away that little half circle out of the top. So I just made this little notch, that's all. Just a nice little feature. Now when I snap back to current, see if I have any warnings. Nope. But because I also added that fillet, it went around that corner pretty nicely. Looks like I might need to adjust some stuff. And because I use the shell tool, the inside now also already has that feature offset to the inside. So that's one of the reasons why I really like using the shell tool. Now, one problem, it looks like for some reason a little hole appeared here because the way the shell feature works. So I might have to go back and just adjust that. So all that means is go in, edit feature. Oh yeah, just deselect and wonder why it is shelling that little thing. That's weird. And cancel again. Not sure why it's doing that. That's funky. It's there. It's a feature. It should be fully joined because it is. Let's open the bodies, make sure we don't have more than one. Aside from the extruded lid, that's fine. Funky. Nope, doesn't exist on that. But no. Always something. Let's just double check that feature. Cut. Yeah, good. Edit feature. Join. Yep, good. Weird. Don't know why it's doing that. Let's just try deselecting there. Flash. Yeah, same deal. Weird. Snap back to current. Still shelling that chunk. That is super weird. Okay, well, I don't know. We can always plug that or something. We can always make an extrusion down. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, a really simple way to make that adjustment. Super duper. So now when I unhide the bottom, reactivate everything, just collapse some stuff here. Go back. So just something to create that little catch. Now, a different way of approaching this would be I would like something that's an actual, like a little latch, some sort of actual little hook that connects around and actually locks onto something. Well, there's a lot of different ways you can approach that. But in this case, all it needs essentially is something with a little bump, a positive protrusion from the base, and just a little latch from the lid, because we're going to make use of the fact that we're printing in plastic, and plastic is kind of flexible. So I can have something that moves over that bump by flexing a little bit. We're not adding anything complex, just a little feature. And frankly, I can even expand it off of this little chunk here. Might have to tweak some stuff, might have to make this little thumb catch a little bigger. So first, let me activate the base, create a sketch on this front face. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a little hemisphere right off of this top. Now, you could use an actual sphere tool, but sometimes it's easier to use sometimes it's easier to use a sketch tool instead. In this case, it really doesn't matter, but I'm just going to use a sketch since that's what we've been doing. So I'm going to base this sketch off of a center diameter circle, but I want to make sure that's in the center. But because I already had made that little catch, that little thumb catch, it now creates a point for Fusion to make a reference from. So you can see as I mouse toward that point, a little construction line appears when I am in line with that sketch. Pretty slick. Now, the problem is, of course, that only aligns to there, and I don't actually have a distance alignment. But I can change that. But for now, let's just go about to there. Yeah, sure. All right. And in this case, I don't know, 5mm little bump. That ought to be good. Okay. So that's simply a little sketch there. If I want to change the distance there, excuse me, use the dimension tool, select the center point. Oops, I'm slightly to the side. My reference. Come on. Ugh. I can only change the size there. I don't have a line, and I don't have a line there in case. I was hoping it would let me, but it's not going to. All right, there we go. Just draw a line between. I can turn that little line into a construction line. This is why I wanted to use this instead of a sphere tool. So, all right, I just drew a line there. That's all. Now when I use my dimension tool to select that line, God, it is having a lot of trouble staying selected. I don't know what's going on here. I might need to just save and start, or save and change this. Sorry, meaning save and restart this program. It is having some funky problems tonight. Oh, it's that threaded rod that's hidden there. Okay. Come on, dimension. There you go. All right, so just in case you needed this to be like a certain dimension, like change that to like 8 millimeters. All right, there you go. It's just a different way to move things around based on sketches and such. And okay, what the problem I was running into, it kept trying to both model and show the threaded rod that was directly below there. So sometimes it helps just hide things you don't need. Okay, so again, the reason I like to sketch is so that way I can make that alteration if I find out, you know what, that was a bit too far away or it's a bit too close. I can change it. All right, maybe it should be 5 millimeters away. That's all. Okay. All righty. So we're still on this we're still here. And now I just want to extrude this up. That's a 5 millimeter circle. So yes, it's going to be a hemisphere. Half of that, 2.5. Cool. There you go. Simple extrusion. Just use a fillet. And in this case, if I just use full fillet, select that top. Just select the whole thing. Come on. Yep, there you go. Ugh. What? Fine. Sometimes on solids, the full fillet gets finicky. So, all right, there you go. Again, it's a 5 millimeter circle. So if I make this 2.5, it makes a little bump. All right. In this case, maybe using the sphere tool and just embedding it would have been easier, but there we are. Now, I created this little bump in time after the shell tool, so it has no effect in there. So this is literally just a little bump there. It's all I need. That's going to be the little thing that my catch just grabs onto. Okay. Unhide the lid, activate the lid component. So all I'm going to do now is create something that extends downward. Now, the trick to this is if you want to create a latch like this, if you want it to flex a little bit, it cannot be very thick. But in this case, I also don't need it to like completely encapsulate. Let me activate both so you can see. I don't need it to completely encapsulate that little bump. I just need it to like overlap just a little bit. So what I could do is, the thought would be, well, let me activate here. And where are my sketches for this? Oops, not bodies, sketches. That little guy. So I should be able to just extrude that little half, have it go down far enough. If you're having trouble seeing, remember, we move it like 10, 8, 9, something like that. Doesn't matter. Sure, fine. Again, the issue, I don't know why it's not wanting to automatically join. That's strange. All right, for some reason, it is not wanting to join there. So realistically, this now, that's there. I can use that bump as a deleting tool, but thing is it's kind of really thick there. You're going to have trouble working with that. So might be best to actually, with something like this, don't use a round tool. Maybe use something that is rectangular that you don't have to adjust too much. Or with this one, I can always just kind of trim some chunks away from it. How I could do it, oops. Sorry, I lost where I was orbiting from. How I could do that, pretty straightforward. Just do like a sketch on the bottom here and, okay, why'd you do that? Make sure I'm actually on the bottom. Yep. Okay. And I can use the project tool to copy the bottom of that hemisphere or that semicircle, I'm sorry. And then just draw like a line some ways away from it. Like, I don't know, use the offset tool. Something like that. Maybe that might not be too far. Or just use a line. Again, I'm going to use construction lines just to help myself a little bit here. I don't know. That bump is only like, again, 2.5 millimeters out, so like one ought to do it. Because all I'm drawing is I'm just drawing like literally just a line across. So I want to draw a line straight across there, but if I draw from here to there, then I got to make two of them, blah, blah, blah. But again, if I mouse over that point, I've got the line tool active. If I mouse over that point, see how that construction line, that guide line pops up? That's what I want. So just having it pop up, something like that, and just drawing straight across, doesn't matter. There we go. See, I've created these little areas here. I can use those as extrusion points. All right, finish sketch. There we go. Now I can extrude just that little section back up to the top. So again, I'm just going to use the extend type to object. Of course, it is being real fussy with me here. Come on, jeez, it's grabbing some weird spots. There we go. So I'm just using it I'm using it just to shave a little chunk off back there. Damn. Where's my little bump? Okay. What happened? What is going on here? Somehow it extruded through both because it had that active. All right, fine. I'm not sure. I must have had it. Oh, remember the warning? If it's visible, Fusion will act on it. I had it visible. So if you look at my time slider, that extrude tool, that function, you see how it's got two colors above it? It's functioning on both components, both the lid and the base. So it chopped off the bump I was trying to use. All right, fine. Just go to edit feature, and that way you can just, let's see here. Now that I've got the base hidden, it should be okay. Select again. All right, it's hidden. Why are you acting on it? Sometimes even just canceling out, it keeps that in its memory. I've run into this problem before. So unfortunately, what I have to do is delete that. Shouldn't be this complex, but there we are. And it hid the sketch. Good Lord. Okay, there we go. It's supposed to be a really simple thing. And extend to object, just up there to the top. Come on. There. Okay, there we go. See, it's no longer functioning on that other piece too. Good. So now when I unhide that, it should be showing me both. Let me make everything visible. Yeah, there you go. See, just that little bump, just that little catch there. It's all I need. I just need a little bit of an overlap. So now the last thing I need to do for this is I want to use essentially this bump that is attached to the body. It's all there, all one thing. And I use that to cut a little divot away from my little latch here, a little cover. So with everything active, I use a combine and cut tool. So just a cut tool. So my target body, this little guy, little bump, or the little notch here. And the tool is the base. Now you see I select that, the whole thing becomes a cutting tool. Make sure you select keep tool. Otherwise, all that red, so the whole bottom half of my project, it'll delete. Select OK. There we go. So now when I hide the base, just made that little divot. That's all. That's all I needed. All right, so it's still showing these as two separate parts. Again, I don't know why the shell tool acted on this little thing here, but before I join this base or my little tab here to here, I need to make sure that gets filled in. So for whatever reason it's doing that, I can just use like an extrude tool probably and just pull that forward. So, excuse me. So let me activate the lid. Let me use extrude if it'll let me. Let's see here. Just try to hide these sketches. Let's keep trying to select that. There we go. So it's letting me select that face and just bring it forward. There we go. Or again, if you're having trouble, if it's not lining up exactly, go to Accent Type to Object and just select the bottom. That way it snaps directly there. Join. There we go. Okay. And I also want to make sure. Oh, looks like it joined everything together for me. Cool. All right. So a very little, supposed to be a very simple thing there. I can make it. I'm definitely going to round some stuff out here. I can also add some features, things like, I don't know, if I want that to be a little bit more textured, I'll do that. But essentially, just round some stuff out, all of that. But before I do that, remember one thing you want to do. This joint here definitely creates, or sorry, not this joint. This little angle here definitely creates a weak point. Now, this whole tab here is way thicker than I would normally make something like this. But what you want to do is add a fillet right there, just a little bit, like even the 1 millimeter right there. That little bit of a curvature will strengthen this tab. Select OK. So now let me unhide the base, open the whole thing. Jeez. Of course, I still have to figure out and repair what happened there. So now when I go to open this, oh man, it is not letting me just select the whole top. Yes, it clips through, but should be enough clearance. But one quick thing, because I made that kind of long, doesn't hurt. Visually look, make sure that my tab's not going to interfere with anything else. No, looks good. So it's just going to kind of notch over that little bump, and that ought to work. Now, that's a pretty sharp curve. I would say definitely also put a fillet there as well. Oh, man. Orbit is really going funky on this. So just make sure it's only working on that. I'm just going to add a fillet here too. Or actually, instead of a fillet, this might actually be better place to use what's called a chamfer. We played with this a little bit before. Fillet's a curve. Chamfer is a diagonal 45-degree angle off of that. So I'm going to select there, and I'm just selecting that base, just that little edge, and I'm just chopping that in a little bit. Not so much that it like actually takes a chunk away, but the reason I'm doing that just adds kind of a little ramp for that bump to leap off of. So it's kind of a funky little thing. I wasn't planning on making this based around a rounded object, but I like that little thumb tab feature. So that's a simple way to create a really simple little latch versus just this little thumb point that gives you something to grab onto. So let's pause there and we'll finish up in a moment. Let me save here. All righty. Okay, break over. So pretty much we've got the little latch going. Whatever happened here, I'm going to try to fix this with our hinge. But essentially, these are just a couple of ways that you can add those little features in, a little thumb catch or something that would actually function as a light connector. Ultimately, with this catch being a bit thicker, what you want to do, because you want to minimize the amount of potential damage with this, and what I mean by that is if you're printing this, remember that a printer prints. Let me pop back to stop the where's the button? Dang it. I always get my stop sharing. Come on. Oh, it's not sharing at the moment. That's why it's confused. Great. Okay. Sorry. I was confused. All right. So to finish, sorry. There we go. Showing the screen. Ultimately, showing you how to work on this tab, this little thing. You don't have to make a catch. I just wanted to give you an option, but you do have to create model features, and this is just a good feature to have, because if you wanted this actually do like snap closed. But the thing with a latch like this, ideally, I would not have made it a semicircle. It's fine if it is, but you're utilizing the slight flexibility of a 3D print or of a plastic printed object. The issue is we wanted to add these fillets and such, and it probably would be good to add more up here because, yes, it's a 3D printed object in plastic, but, and let me stop sharing so I can show on the screen here, or on the board here. Remember that, yes, that latch would be printed, and I'm just showing it like it's upside down. Got the little thing, and then there's that little the bump between the two halves. Great. But ultimately, that is going to be printed sliced. And you are asking this thing to move slightly in those directions. So it potentially can crack your prints. Now, you make that catch a little bit thinner, you might get a little more flex out of it. Other thing, you be cautious of what material you use. PLA, it's fairly strong. It prints nice and clean, but remember, it's a little bit more brittle because of the nature of the material, and it prints a little bit lower temperature. PET, it is a true plastic, so it does have the benefit of being a little more flexible, and it bonds better because it prints a little bit higher temperature, also because it's a polymer. So choose what material you're using, but remember, everything, it's all sliced up like that. So just something to think about. Like I said, you can add fillets, add strength to this. That would definitely help. The amount of overlay that we have here is very minimal, so this would probably work really well. The other thing I want to show you is just some other features. Things like if you're printing this, orientation. Ideally, you'd probably want to print this. Now I'm going to show from the top down, but essentially in this orientation. But that might mean that in reality, maybe the extrusion for the for your text, maybe that shouldn't be positive. Maybe that should be negative. Where is that? There you are. So let's edit that feature. And instead of positive, let's go to object and select the inside. Can't get to it. Hide the lid. Select the inside. And instead, just make sure to select as a cut. So it cuts all the way through, or it could even just be a recess, whatever. So now of course, the problem is you cannot cut all the way through because you have floating things there. Because obviously these little floating guys, that ain't gonna work. So don't cut all the way through. Something like that. Instead of to object distance, I don't know, -1. There you go. So now it is debossed, or it's cut inward. It would all functions properly still. There you go. But if you were to go and print this, now, of course, we still have to fix this hinge. Now, all your layering would occur. Yes, it would still layer across your lid here, or your little catch. That creates somewhat of a potential weak point, but you're not like bending the latch off to get it to pop off. You're just kind of flexing a little bit. The base will print nicely against the bottom of the printer. You're all set. And there you go. All right. So the other things I wanted to show you were just some different ways of adding some additional features. Things like, hey, how could I create like textures on this? So something to that effect. What I mean by that is, let's start a sketch here. Oh, hang on. Let me cancel. Make sure I have the lid active. Don't get those confused again. All right, there we go. Now I'm working on the lid with the lid active. Okay, cool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a project tool and just project this little bit of the latch. Now it's a curved surface, so what it's doing, whoops. Dang it, it didn't catch that side. Geez, this rotation is really throwing me. When it's selected, when I used the project tool, it was selected by basically faces. I want to use the whole body. Select there. Yeah, it's going to make a whole projection. But this curved surface doesn't necessarily have a corner to work from. But what it does have is a high point edge. And as I orbit down, or I try to, there you go. See, it is projected just the leading edge of that curved surface. So it's a really cool feature to be able to work from. Now, the reason I'm doing that, and let me just hide the body there. I just want to show how you make a couple features. So in this, I don't know, I'm going to create a couple like ridge points here. So I'm just going to make like a couple of circles. I don't know, 2 millimeters. Sure. Okay. And I'm going to use a rectangular pattern for that, which just means I'm going to move some duplicates outward. And in this case, its distribution is by extent, meaning it's overall 8 millimeters. Cool. There we go. One direction, so yada, yada. There we go. All the reason I'm doing that, of course, it hit everything, is because I can take those sketches and extrude that. Oops. Up and through, so it chops through. And that's how I could create like some little ridges on the front there. Yeah, it's not a big deal, but just different way that you can add features. Like if you have a curved surface, you can cut things through. It's just a neat little thingy. Let's see here. So we have our little notch there. Great. I'm going to leave that edge as a sharp edge because I want it to lock around that little hemisphere. That chamfer is very helpful. But you can always add some fillets for additional strength around these corners, around these edges, that sort. I'm just going all the way around, not touching this fillet here, but just the rest of the edges. I don't know, one. See what that does. Now, I want to show you what can happen just kind of confusing surfaces. Oh, it is not locking into my point there, so it's doing some weird orbiting. Essentially right here, this odd face here, it's just kind of doing some odd stuff. So this would be one of those areas of, maybe I shouldn't make it quite so large. The fillet, that is, shrink it down like 0.5 instead of 1. There you go. All I'm doing is just adding some curves to these surfaces, these corners. It adds strength. If I want to print this, these are different ways you can add strength to this. This isn't necessarily one of the components of the project, but this will be a continuing theme for the semester because this is a 3D printing course. You want to find ways to improve your prints. There you go. On the inside, yeah, you could add fillets in there if you want to make it smoother, but that doesn't really matter in there because this is an actual functional piece. I just want to make sure that it's less likely to break. That's all. Again, you should definitely add some fillets to the outside, but at the same time, you got enough overlap. I don't think that would be much of an issue. Okay. Now, I am going to fix this, but I'll fix this later. So the last part for this assignment really is, let's make sure to add our appearances. You can do whatever you want for this. This is more of just a function. So I'm going to switch back to appearance mode after I save. Sure, whatever. Switching back to appearance mode is hold shift and hit in November, goes back to appearance mode. And here, just asking you to use an appearance. Press A, Apple, whatever. I don't know. There we go. Concrete. It is a concrete box. Oh, that hasn't been downloaded. So hit the 2 download buttons. I've made a concrete box. And I don't know. Sure, why not? Let's make a polished golden concrete. Those go together well, right? There you go. Just make sure you download them. All right. So that's my strangely dissimilar colored box with the, where's the body for my ghost buddy? Let's unhide you, friend. There we go. This all functions. Lid opens. Hello, friend. And this little latch, just this little nub, is enough for that plastic to notch over and catch. So it's a really simple way to make a closing latch, but it's a nice feature. You should definitely add fillets for curves and such for printability. You should definitely add fillets for and or chamfers for strength adding. Again, the reason I added a chamfer at the bottom of this little notch, it just allows that little bump to go over a little bit easier rather than a curved surface. Yes, it's very similar, but in this case, that a chamfer for that one point will work better. Okay, there we go. Add your features, makes it opens and closes. It's got imported components. There you go. All right. So that's pretty much the assignment. I do want to show you a couple of other examples of ways you can make this printable if you would like. One of the main things being that, okay, I don't have something that I don't know, order parts for this thing. Okay, cool. Two options for this hinge here. Now, again, I don't know what happened to my sketch of my lobes. It's all messed up. But essentially, all I'm doing is I'm just going to hide these parts. And I just need to double check how big is that aperture. I can go to inspect that ring, go over diameter. It's a 5 millimeter hole. Cool. So what I can do, and I'm going to create a new component for this. New component, printed pin. Now this is just a way for me to make a part that I can print and use it for holding my hinge together. And all this is frankly, you don't even need to make a sketch for this. I can use pre-made elements, cylinder. So in this case, I can start a cylinder. Now you can either start it in place or just somewhere. If you want to use joints to snap it in place, great. Let's do exactly that. Now, see, I'm going to have trouble selecting something, so let's just snap it in place. So I'm going to select right on top of this hinge part as my plane. That's what it will create. And I'm going to make a center point floating over that cylinder. You see how as I mouse over, the little circle tool pops up? That is the constraint symbol for concentric. That means it's going to put it right smack in the middle of this circle. There we go. So make that 5 millimeters. And there we go. Enter. And I want to make sure to extrude this all the way through. So we know that's going to be that's 50. So let's make it a little bit longer. Let's make it, I don't know, 55. Negative 55. Goes all the way down. Great. Now I'm going to make a cap for this. Same. Make a cylinder. Snap right on. Use the concentric tool. If I want to make this the same, great. Don't make it larger because then it'll cut into the object. Because remember, we made the barrel hinge right up against the surface of the box. So if you want to play it safe, that's 10 millimeters. So I don't know, make it 9. Sure, there we go. And I'm just going to extrude that up. 5. Great. And I can leave it as join. There we go. And now, down here, I can do the same. So right now, that is all joined. If I were to move this, drag this out, you see the pin is solid object. This is exactly where that revert thing comes in handy. I don't know how to get it back in place. Obviously, you can Control Z or use revert, pops it back in place. Now I can create a cylinder here, right on the bottom, make it concentric, make that 9 millimeters, great. And I'm going to extrude that up to -5. Now, right now it wants to cut away. I do not want that. I want to use new body entirely, so it's completely separate. Hit OK. And all I need to do now, use the combine tool to cut. I want to cut that cylinder I just made, just that little plug thingy. And then the tool would be the pin I made. Make sure to select Keep Tools. Hit OK. There we go. I'll go back to, I should have done this before, but just auto color. You can see this a little more clearly. So now I've just made just a little pin. Oh, it's joined it all together because it's treating it as a linked thing. It's 2 separate bodies, but basically you could now just print these 2 pieces separately. Now you've got something in there, and you just glue the cap onto the end once you put it all together, and you've made a pin. So that's just taking the place of the hardware. The here, let me reactivate everybody. So it's just taking the place of the acorn cap nuts and the threaded rod. Just instead, it's something you could print out instead. That's all. So for the assignment, still want you to bring imported hardware in, but this would be if you wanted to print these and then not go buy hardware. There you go. That's all you have to do. Really easy. You might even not even need to make this whole thing with a flange and such. You could just probably drop in a pin and glue it in place on either side. Speaking of, the other thing you could do, now would require more work. You could go back in, shrink this aperture for your original model. Filament is 1.75 millimeters that we're printing with. There is a different size, but 1.75. You make your aperture more like 1.8, so you give yourself a little bit of clearance, print it, slide a bit of filament through, and use like a soldering iron or something, and just burn the two ends together. Now you've got a pin locked in place. But in all reality, something like this little printed piece, that would probably work much better. So just for appearance's sake, literally it's appearance, sorry. What's that?
What's wrong with that? To do
for the if you were wanting to use a filament, the strength would be plenty fine enough because this is right up against everything. The size of this hinge is overkill for in general, but especially for if you were wanting to use that little filament trick. Mm-hmm. It's easy, it's nice, but it is more handy for making much smaller things. Jeez. I'm just gonna paint this a different color so y'all can see this a little more easily. Sure, red and yellow, why not? Make it the ketchup and mustard colors. There we go. No. And you can, of course, add little features to those as you like. But there you go. Now you can see you just like a little dot of super glue inside, hold it in place, you're all good. But if you wanted to shrink those apertures and use the filament idea, it would work plenty fine. For what this is, it doesn't need to be overly strong, and a pin this size is way overkill in general. So that would work really nicely. Other models you could use the filament thing for, like if you make much smaller things like tweezers or pliers or things like that just need like basically like a rivet together. That's where the little filament trick comes in. Anyway, so I just wanted to show you all that real quick as an example of how to print something that would take the place of the imported hardware if you in fact wanted to print this. So there you go. So that's pretty much the project. I'm going to leave it open and we'll save with printable pen. Okay. I still got to fix this. I don't know why I did that.